This is the tab that you're going to be working on in your interactive notebook. My recommendation for you is to open another tab and pull this page up so that you can go back and forth between the video and your tab. We're going to talk about how to convert to and from decimals, fractions, and percents. Now, convert means to change form. So, for example, if you are going from a fraction to a decimal, what operation would you use to do that? And you can see off to the right-hand side, you have all of these little cards that you can slide into place to show you how to do that. And I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to be writing some examples in the box here that you will not need to be doing, but I will explain. Then you will find the matching slide over to the right, and you will move that slide into place. I'll move a few of the slides to help you get started, and then you will need to complete this assignment, screenshot when it's done, and then submit that screenshot in your Google Classroom. So let's get started. We're going to start by talking about fractions. We're going to see how would you go from a fraction to a decimal. Well, let's take a common fraction, 1/4. We often say that step 1, we are going to box top. And we get that phrase because we would normally take the division box and place within it the top number. We use the denominator or bottom number on the outside to divide. So in doing so, 4 will not go into 1. So we would say 4 into 10 goes twice. 4 times 2 would be 8. When we subtract that product, we get a 2. Adding another 0, 4 goes into 25 times. So the fraction is 0.25. So step 2 would be to divide. However, what you will probably do is you will use a calculator. And when you are using a calculator, you always put the top number in first. So you would put 1, and then the division sign here is actually just divide. And then you put in the last number. So you would just use your calculator, put the top number divided by the bottom number. You put that in, and you get your nice decimal. So let's go back and look at the different tabs that you have. Which tab do you see describes box topping or taking the top number and divide it by the bottom number? You're right. I'm sure you found it. So you will then take your box on your slides and drag it into the right place. I see that you can see how that is to be done. So let's take a look at our next one. Now we are going to go from a fraction to a percent. Well, we basically do the same process. We would box top or take the top number divided by the bottom number. So let's go back to our fraction of 1/4. We know that that decimal is 0.25. Now, we need to change this decimal to a percent. The easiest way to do that is to just multiply by 100. Try it in your calculator. 0.25 times 100 would get you an even 25. So that's it. We just add the percent sign, and that's how you go from a fraction to a percent. Can you find the slide that describes that? Okay. Let's now discuss how to go from decimals to a fraction. Decimals to the fraction, in my opinion, is probably the most work, but it's nothing to be worried about. Let's take our decimal of 0.25. How are we going to operate this conversion is we are going to put a 1 underneath the decimal. I would take a look over to the right at all of your slides. Which one tells you to put a 1 under the decimal? Okay, so then what's the next step? You're right. We are now going to put zeros for every digit after that decimal. Then simply take your decimal and extend it through a line. There's our fraction, 25 over 100. However, 25 over 100 can be reduced. There is a number that will divide evenly into both of those, and that is 5. So we are going to divide by 5 on top and bottom and end up with 5/20ths. And then this reduces again by 5, and we get 1/4. Maybe some of you are wondering why I didn't just divide both top and bottom by 25. 25 goes into 25 one time, and 25 goes into 100 4 times. But most of you would probably just divide by 5. So the steps were putting a 1 under the decimal, filling in zeros under the decimals, and then simplifying. Let's now go from a decimal to a percent. So let's take our decimal, 0.25, and we are going to change it to a percent. So if you will remember, we only have to multiply by 100. That is it. But we will often just tell you to Dr. Pepper. If you are looking at both decimals and percents, there is just moving 2 places left or right that you can do. I always start with what we're starting with. We are starting with a decimal. So I'm going to start with my D for decimal. Since I'm starting with my D, I will move 2 places to the right. So 2 places to the right. Let's talk about percents. Percent to a fraction. That one, if you would write percent, we can take our 25%. Percent actually means per 100. So all that we need to do is put it over 100. Then we simply erase the percent sign and we have our fraction. So we are simply taking our percent, putting that number over 100 and simplifying. We also now know 25 over 100 simplifies to 1/4. Now, to go from a percent to a decimal, do you remember what I said about Dr. Pepper? Only this time, I'm starting with a percent. Since I'm starting with percent, I will move backwards 2 places left. So I'm going to either divide by 100 or move 2 places to the left. All right, be sure you finish moving all of your pieces into place, screenshot, and turn this in your Google Classroom.